Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Maggie Bush. I'm the field director here at NBCC. We're really thrilled to have you with us today. Today, we wanted to update you on our urgent campaign to pass the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act. Many of you probably joined us in our webinar a month ago, and we've had a ton of activity and some progress since then. So, wanted to share with you where we are at. Just to give you a sense of what we will be covering today. First of all, I'll just say that we have you all on mute just to keep background noise to a minimum. Please utilize the Q&A function and the chat. And if you have questions, put them in that Q&A and we will take them at the end. I want to make sure our great speakers have time to share and get through what they would like to share before we have time for questions at the end. We are going to have Jennifer Burzak, who is NBCC's longtime government expert and consultant, give us an update as to our legislative state of play, where things are as of right now. We're going to hear from three incredible advocates. Heather Hinnah from Missouri. She's with Gateway to Hope, which is an organization NBCC has been working closely with in Missouri, and she will share some perspectives on the recent lobby day that NBCC held. Jackie Benson is a longtime NBCC advocate in the state of Virginia and was also with us on our recent lobby day and has also gone to congressional town halls and many other lobby days related to breast cancer priorities. And then Jo Lynn Collins is from the state of West Virginia and is also a longtime NBCC advocate now and has been instrumental in building support for the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act, which we will be talking about today. And then I'll wrap us up at the end with some immediate next steps that we can all be taking to help continue to push this crucial legislation forward. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Jennifer Burzak to give us just a really quick recap for those of you who didn't join last time.
Great. Well, thanks, Maggie, and thanks to all of you for being here. We really appreciate your interest, and we want to especially welcome those of you who are joining us for the first time to learn about this issue. And we hope it's going to inspire you to work with NBCC and help us on this important initiative. So just a little bit of background and just to reiterate and remind folks that the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act is a bipartisan bill which would eliminate the waiting periods for SSDI and Medicare for individuals with metastatic breast cancer who qualify. And we're going to get more into the details on that in a couple of slides. But in terms of background, when it was instituted in 1972, the waiting periods for SSDI beneficiaries was intended to limit people who were injured on the job and were going to heal from those injuries, from then becoming eligible for Medicare and having Medicare costs go up when, ultimately they were going to get better and wouldn't need it. So the goal was really to make sure that Medicare coverage was only going to be extended to people whose disabilities were severe and long lasting. And you can go ahead and flip the slide. So what NBCC advocates recognized, and what was recognized even earlier than that, was that the problem with these waiting periods was that they were inadvertently applied to some people who really they weren't intended for, people who were living with diseases, and there's a select few of them, including metastatic breast cancer, but diseases that were terminal, not going to get better, and therefore there was really no reason to have these waiting periods apply. And so NBCC demanded that there be a policy solution for this. And so working with, this was in 2019, we worked with the House and the Senate, Democrats and Republicans, and we worked with them to draft and introduce legislation which would essentially eliminate the waiting periods for people who fell under the current law and qualified for these SSDI and Medicare exceptions. These are people who are under 65, but waive the waiting period so that they wouldn't have to wait 29 months to be able to get their health care, since these are people that needed access immediately. And this was not an idea that hadn't already been brought forward by a few other people with similar conditions. In the 1990s, people with ALS were able to lift the waiting period for the Medicare portion of this because really of the same reason that, to have them wait 29 months for Medicare coverage made no sense. These were not people who were like had been injured on the job and gonna get better. And so there was precedent for this. And so this was NBCC's legislation was the first to waive the exception for people with metastatic breast cancer. But there had been a few other instances, including ALS, where Congress had waived the waiting periods for certain diseases. And over the years, and it's been four Congresses, and for those of you who aren't aware of how Congress works, each Congress has a number. We're in the 119th Congress now, and each Congress is 2 years long. So at the end of a 2 year period, a new Congress begins, and that means anything that's not passed has to start all over. So this is the fourth Congress that we have had this legislation in. And that is not uncommon, just so you know. There are tens of thousands of bills. I think the latest number was 17,000 bills have been introduced in the 119th Congress, and 100 of them have been passed. So, I mean, this is a sort of particularly an active Congress, but that's sort of the ratio of how many things get introduced to what gets done. So we have been at this for a while, and we have hosted many, many lobby days. We've had hundreds of organizations that have worked toward the passage of this, and we've had thousands, literally thousands of advocate calls, messages, and office visits really over many years. And when we talk about sort of this urgent push over the last 6 weeks or over the last few months, we're at a point now where we have an incredible number of members of Congress who are signed on from both sides of the aisle, bipartisan, in the House of Representatives. And we only have a limited amount of time left in the Congress. And so that's why we refer to this push as being so urgent. Okay, you can flip. So let's look at what HR 2048 does. And HR 2048 is the bill number. Every bill that's introduced in the House has an HR number, and every bill that's introduced in the Senate has an S number. And we're focusing on the House bill now because we have 259 co-sponsors in the House and because we have so many, two-thirds of the committee that has jurisdiction over the bill signed on. But there is a Senate bill that is exactly like the House bill. It's S3442 that we are also pushing. And so the strategy around this is to really sort of capitalize on the momentum of the House bill and get it passed in the House, and then things will be much easier when it moves over to the Senate. So in terms of what this does, this is again for eligible individuals who are diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. They are under 65 years old, so they do not already qualify for Medicare. But under current law, they qualify if they have had a certain number of years worked and if they've earned the necessary tax credits. They qualify for Social Security disability and they qualify for Medicare. And again, the problem is that also in the current law are these waiting periods, which unfortunately really were not intended to apply to people with terminal illnesses, but that's the way the law stands. And so we are not looking to expand benefits for anybody that doesn't already qualify for benefits. These people that we're talking about are already entitled to SSDI and Medicare. It's just that they have to wait 29 months, which of course is really quite cruel for people who have metastatic breast cancer because they need particularly the healthcare treatment so immediately, and also because the average lifespan is less than 3 years, and this would make them wait 29 months. So in terms of where we are now, so Congress ends at the end of this year. As I said, it's the end of the 119th Congress. And depending on, which calendar you're looking at, every week, sort of the number of days left changes because the leadership in the House and Senate try to get things done and then add days or take days away. But we have very little time left. And The committee, when we talk about the support on the committee, every bill that's introduced gets referred to a committee, which is the entity, the members of Congress in the House and Senate, and the Democrats and the Republicans that have jurisdiction over a certain subject matter. So our bill has been referred to the Ways and Means Committee, and that's the committee responsible for passing it out before it can be voted on the floor. We have 2/3 of the Ways and Means Committee members signed on to this bill, which is extraordinary. I don't know of, there may be a few other bills in the entire Congress that have that much support from a committee with jurisdiction, but it's pretty extraordinary. And you should all know that the reason why it has all of these co-sponsors is because of the advocates who you're going to hear from, and because of the work of the National Breast Cancer Coalition in getting so much support. So our goal is to try and get it through the committee and marked up out of the committee, which is sort of the regular order of the way things happens on Capitol Hill. There are other ways to get things done, and we will be pursuing those if the Ways and Means Committee doesn't mark it up soon. But for right now, that's the strategy we're focusing on. And August recess is coming up, and all of you who read the newspapers and see the headlines know that many, many of your representatives and senators are fighting for their political lives in tough elections. And so Congress is going to come home for a month, and they are going to be looking to get the support of their constituents. And so this is going to be a really key opportunity to influence members of Congress. And I just want to say one other thing before we move on to the advocate perspective, and that is, and we can talk about this in the Q&A, but again, I want to reiterate the fact that it has not taken this long because there's more opposition to this than anything else. It's taken this long to a large extent because this is how Congress works, slowly. The primary pushback on this has really been a combination of, conservative members not wanting to spend money and expand any benefits beyond what people already get, and the more progressive members wanting to not do this in a selective way, but expand access for everybody. And so we have really good and well-rehearsed responses to all the objections that are available on NBCC's website and in all of our materials, and that we can also follow up with you individually on. So now I'll turn it over back to Maggie.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I'm sure folks are going to have questions for you at the end. We're also going to talk a lot about the August recess too, and things that you can be planning to do if you're going to be home in August, along with your members of Congress, and make sure that they know that this is a priority for you and other breast cancer advocates. I'm going to start with Jackie. Jackie, you are a longtime breast cancer advocate in the state of Virginia. You've been part of both in-person and virtual and in-district lobby days. Can you just share with us a few minutes about why it's so important to advocate with members of Congress on these issues, especially the metastatic breast cancer bill, and any takeaways you had from the recent lobby day that we had in DC about this?
Well, I always kind of present this as, because I've been so fortunate to have healthcare and to have healthcare from the time of diagnosis. I'm still here today after 10 years when I was given like a 2-year, 2 years to live when I was diagnosed. So, and I really attribute that to being able to get healthcare right away. So that's what I kind of want to have the Congress member understand, is that, first of all, we're metastatic, not because we didn't do what we were supposed to or whatever, but this just happens. And regardless, we all need health care, and we can't wait because of our, 2 to 3 year survival if we don't have health care, especially. I find that when I went to speak, especially at the town halls, that if I started with something personal like that initially and made it short and sweet, I got their attention. And then I would go more or less right into the ask. I found that to be the most helpful because I watched what other people were doing. I remember my first town hall, and the longer they went on, the message got lost. And so, and I could see the loss of interest in the, who they were speaking to. So I find that giving that short story and then your ask right away is very helpful. Um, Now, granted, I had one of the easiest, I think, congressman to speak to because he was a rookie, and he was looking to, it was his first town hall and all, and luckily he did sign on right after. But I think it's so important to keep those connections. So I'm always, even if his town halls are on the phone, because some of them are, where you just kind of, you say you're going to participate and you're on the phone. Um, so I do those all the time. And even if I don't get a chance to speak, I will often call the next day and thank them. And just to keep my name in there and our purpose in there. And I just find that that is also extremely rewarding. And I let them know how much I appreciate their time and attention to the matter.
And Jackie, Jennifer talked about how this is the 8th year that we've been
Mhm.
working on this bill.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, Given especially your lived experience with this, knowing people who have not had the benefit of healthcare that you have had, right? And in battling
Mhm.
this, having to wait. How do you keep yourself motivated and keep going when things feel frustrating? What did you tell yourself coming to DC for this last lobby day? I think it's helpful for folks to hear.
Well, I think you just never know when you're going to get someone at the right moment. you know and I also, and I don't do like research in advance per se, but if there's, even if I'm speaking to someone's staff member, if there's something there that I can hook into, we often ask if they know someone who's had breast cancer, and almost everybody does. Or one time I spoke to a gal who had a chronic illness. It wasn't breast cancer, but it was something else. So we were able to relate to how she understood how important all this was. So I think that I don't know, I just don't get frustrated because it doesn't help. I just keep going, because you just never know where you're going to catch the right person at the right moment.
That's great. Thank you, Jackie. And again, I'm sure folks might have questions for you all, but I'll move on to
Mhm.
Heather now. Now, Heather, this last month you came and it was your first, oops, it was your first lobby day with NBCC, first really anything with NBCC. We've been working on building a relationship with your organization where you work in Missouri for a while, because we have lots of similar goals in mind. And you serve as someone who supports people throughout your state who are dealing with things like this waiting period personally in their lives. Can you talk a little bit about what you do with Gateway to Hope and a little bit about, those stories that you carried with you when you came to DC and what that experience was like for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little background. So Gateway to Hope, we are Missouri based, but we support patients, of course, all throughout Missouri, and we go into Southern Illinois and Eastern Kansas. And our whole purpose is to remove barriers to accessing care through the breast health continuum. So whether that is screening and imaging and MRIs, or if that's somebody who actually has a breast cancer diagnosis, stages 0 to 3 or metastatic. And our whole organization is to be a through line for people who are navigating things like financial toxicity or insurance accessibility, or even like accessing the healthcare system in general. And I joined the organization a little over 7 years ago, and I came from, interestingly enough, I heard mention of the ALS population. I came from the ALS Association, so I brought a lot of like end of life, sort of incurable disease level knowledge. And when I came to Gateway to Hope, it was very evident to me that our metastatic patient population, their needs were just so much different, and the access to care was so much different, and the cost, like it is a concern for anybody who has this diagnosis, but it's exacerbated for somebody who has a metastatic diagnosis. So in my role currently, I oversee the program that is delivered to patients regardless of where they are on the breast health continuum. But working with patients with metastatic breast cancer for the last 7 years, both directly and indirectly, it is always this constant sort of like robbing Peter to pay Paul sort of scenario for folks who are in this waiting period. We've heard very horrific cases where people are delaying care when they cannot afford to, from a medical stability standpoint, because they do not have the coverage that they need, or their assets don't meet the requirements, or so on and so forth, or they're still able to work and their household burdens, their financial burdens require them to have an income, whereas this waiting period, can cause issues with their ability to work, right? Because they have to have demonstrated an inability to work to even kick off that waiting period. So we've had countless patients who have come through our doors at Gateway to Hope, and we do our best to make arrangements with the healthcare facilities that do have financial assistance programs. Patients are utilizing their financial assistance through our program to cover health related costs. And there's times where we have had patients who've died before they've even been able to access this coverage. And it's been really disheartening. It's personal for me too. I have a very close loved one who is living with metastatic disease, breast cancer. And at this point, she's able to work full time and there's no concerns there. But at some point in the future, like, we might be needing to evaluate different scenarios, and she's a single mom and all of those sorts of things. So this was both professionally values aligned for me and personal. And when I met with the reps and chairman's office and the Ways and Means Committee, like you said, Maggie, this was my first time. And I sort of, for folks who have had experience in this space for many years, I was given some different, words of wisdom of how to proceed and sort of what to expect, especially with the political environment as it is right now. And my experiences were really positive. The fact that breast cancer truly impacts everybody, regardless of, political alignment, was obvious. And so I think that was helpful in the spaces I sat in during the advocacy day. I also heard the advocate who spoke before me speak to like how the personal side is very moving. And I found that when I was able to speak to some of those personal components, like what patients experience, the patients that I've encountered through the years, like from a personal standpoint, what loved ones have experienced through the years, that seemed to be the most moving, especially for the Ways and Means folks, Matt Russell and Matt Hiddle. They seemed to be really receptive to that. So all in all, it was really from somebody who's, I'm a social worker, I've been in the social services space for many, many years, and doing direct practice. And, there are many days where it's like, ugh, like you've exhausted every possible avenue for somebody, and there still isn't like a great ending. And so being a part of the advocacy day was, for me, a way to channel some of that, like just that energy that is not always positive, and turn it into a way that, okay, I'm trying to take these stories of the people who have been impacted by this, and really bring it to the forefront so that decisions can be made in a way that, it, at least help influence decisions that are being made, and it get their experiences out there. So for me, it was very rewarding in that sense. And again, I had very positive meetings. So my hope is that we can continue to make progress on this, because it's so important. And I mean, we all know that. That's why we're all here and working towards this. So hopefully, there's some movement with this within this year, I hope. So we'll see, I suppose. But yeah, I'm very grateful to have been a part of it, and thank you to NBCC for the invitation. It was amazing. I was glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. And we're thrilled to have you, Heather, and thank you for your perspective. I think, as we've heard already, both from Jackie and Heather, we know that these personal perspectives and putting a real face on this issue is so powerful and important. It is the reason that this bill has more support than pretty much anything else, in terms of bipartisan support on the Hill. We see it make movement every time we bring people up to Capitol Hill or even to Zoom to talk about this. And Jo Lynn, our final advocate that we're going to have share today, is a clear example of this. She's someone who has used her own story and struggle of being personally impacted by this waiting period to move lawmakers to do the right thing. And so I'd love to hear from you, Jo Lynn, a little bit about why you do this and how you keep yourself motivated to keep doing it, even with all the frustration that it brings, and anything else you'd like to share about your work on this.
Thank you, Maggie, and thank you to NBCC for inviting me to share my story today. Unlike Jackie's story, as she had spoken about being able to access healthcare, I am one of the folks within the metastatic breast cancer community, and there are many of us who don't have that safety net of other healthcare insurance to be able to address our medical needs whenever we need to seek care for our disease. I was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer in February of 2019, and I'm a single mom of 2 girls. And so I have been working this whole time for my commercial insurance, and that has gone relatively well until recent progression. I am now currently on my 5th line of treatment, and due to the symptoms of disease progression and side effects from that treatment, I have found myself unable to even continue with my part-time work. It's put me in a very scary position of applying for Social Security disability and not being able to access that right away. So there's that financial toxicity of not having the income when you need it. And even more scary and more impactful is that additional 24-month wait period for Medicare to kick in. If you don't have a partner, if you don't have the financial means to continue your commercial insurance through your employer, or to even seek out marketplace insurance, you're kind of in a very difficult situation of relying on state Medicaid, which doesn't always get you access to the treatments that you need or to the doctors that you need, the specialists, the clinical trials. And that is terrifying, to live with this diagnosis and know that in the time that you need it the most, you may not have access to the health care that you need. So these delays need to be eliminated immediately. We need to have our benefits, Social Security disability benefits, immediately to have that income to be able to take care of our families. We need to have that wait period for accessing Medicare eliminated so that we have immediate medical care, medical coverage to seek out the specialist, to seek out clinical trials, and to have access to the care that we need to extend our lives. And one way that we can do that is through our advocacy with organizations like NBCC, being able to contact your representatives, contact your congresspeople, contact your senators, contact your newspapers, your any outlets that you can to be able to advocate for this. is one of the things that we can do to help support the metastatic breast cancer community. Social media is another great way to do that. Sometimes just sharing your story, either a personal story if you're a person living with metastatic disease, or if this impacts you or someone that you know or care about, being able to tag those representatives, those officials on social media is often helpful. Making calls, writing letters to the editor for newspapers and things is also one of the things that I've been able to do. Sometimes folks aren't very comfortable making those calls, and there are different platforms that you can even call after hours. I did that in my early stages of advocacy, not being comfortable speaking with somebody on the phone, but you can call after hours and leave a message, and that helps as well. Trying to get meetings set up can be challenging sometimes on your own. You can call, you can knock on doors and still not get the response. But working with organizations like NBCC has been pivotal, monumental in helping me to make those connections. So if you find it difficult trying to make those connections, then I would highly encourage you to get in contact with the folks at NBCC who are already in those relationships. They've already built those networks of connection to help you to be able to do that. You never know. I think it was Jackie, maybe, or it was Hinnah that mentioned, or Heather, I'm sorry, that mentioned not knowing when those opportunities might come into play. One of the very first times that I ever met one of my senators was at a community event. There was free swimming, and they were opening a pickleball court and tournament, and she happened to show up, and I had no idea that she was going to be there. My family and I were just enjoying it. And my sister alerted me that she was there in attendance, and I said, "Oh, I've heard about this Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act, and I really want to know where she stands on this." And she said, "Well, you should go talk to her." And I'm in my swimsuit, dripping wet at this community event, and didn't really think that that was probably the most professional or appropriate time. But you have to snag those opportunities and take advantage of it. I went up to her and shook hands. That was my first and only in-person meeting with her, and her staffer was lovely, did follow up and get in touch with me, and she is one of the co-sponsors on the Senate side for this bill. So it's always important to look for and take advantage of any of those opportunities that might come along, because there are many of us within the metastatic breast cancer community whose life and quality of life depends on accessing the care that we need in a timely manner. So I just encourage everyone to engage as actively as you can, reach out to all the different outlets and news media, social media that you can to generate the support that we need to get this passed.
Thank you so much, Jo Lynn. I didn't know that story about Senator Capito. That's funny. Yes, even in a wet swimsuit,
Yep.
if that's the opportunity that presents itself, it's important to take it. So that's a great inspiration for us all. One thing I want to just add to what Jo Lynn was saying was, we as NBCC staff want you to be able to focus on what is so important for all of you to do, which is tell that story, tell that perspective, make sure that these congressional members and their staff understand exactly what it means to live without healthcare when you're going through this disease and waiting for no good reason for more than 2 years. We want to handle all of the rest of it. We want to handle the logistics. We want to handle getting in touch and scheduling those meetings and helping write the letter to the editor if that's something that you're interested in doing. Help figure out how to place it in a newspaper near, that will influence a member of Congress. So please, if you don't already know us and aren't already in touch with us on that kind of work, please let us know. We'll share our information. After this, we're going to share a number of resources, but we want you all to be able to focus your time on doing that really important work of sharing a face, putting a face and a perspective on this. So thank you very much to all three of you for sharing, and I'm sure folks will have questions in just a minute. I just wanted to quickly share sort of a little bit about the congressional recess. So congressional recesses are points throughout the year where Congress stops working on Capitol Hill and goes home for a while. The biggest one being the August recess. The House of Representatives will be starting their August recess this weekend, and it will go through the beginning of September. The Senate will also do that on a slightly shorter time frame. They will be home, going to events in your community. Many of them will be doing, as Jennifer mentioned, a whole lot of campaign events if they are running for re-election, and many of them are. But they also tend to be more available to us during these recesses. And staff on Capitol Hill, who tend to be the policy expert staff, also will have more availability to talk with us because their bosses are out of town and are doing other things. So it's just an important time. Many of you have taken part in some of these August meetings with us in the past. They're most, as I said, the members themselves are more likely to be available for a meeting in their district at home or at the pickleball opening, like Jo Lynn mentioned, or at different community events. They're also holding town halls, especially if they're running for office, and maybe even doing call-in radio shows and that sort of thing, walking in parades, any of that sort of work. So it's an opportunity for us to have face-to-face time with them. It's also a great opportunity for advocates like you or someone you may know who has not been able to travel to be part of our in-person lobby days here in Washington. This is a great opportunity to give those advocates the chance to meet with members and tell their stories and weigh in. And for you all in your local organizations to be visible within the community. As Jennifer sort of said, our goals during August are to keep up those meetings with the important members. So for us right now, that means the Ways and Means Committee, as she said, as well as leaders in Congress, to move the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act forward in the remaining days that they have. This photo here is our President Fran Visco all the way on the left, and two of our advocates, Caitlin and Denise, who met with Greg Murphy, he is a physician and member of Congress who serves on the Ways and Means Committee from North Carolina. He's a Republican and a co-sponsor of our bill. He's one of the people that we are really urging to step up and do more in support of the bill. So we have scientists and doctors weighing in with him right now, as well as lots of pressure focused on him during the recess. We'll be trying to continue to secure co-sponsors, whether or not they're on the committee. Right now, we stand at 259 co-sponsors. We'd like to get at least 30 more, which is doable. It's hard work, but it is achievable. And so anything we can do to add to that number, including meeting with these members in their district, is important to keep doing. And we want to, again, be visible and show up at events. We are keeping track of those types of town halls and events, and we'll let you know if we see them in your area. A great way for you to do that is to follow your member on social media, join their email newsletter list, your member of Congress, and they will probably be sending out information about places they will be in the coming week or so. So, do that. It's a passive way to sign up and see opportunities that might come your way. Now, here are the 4 kind of main things that you can be doing, and we're going to send out a resource about every single one of them. So as I said, find out what your member's schedule looks like. Sign up for their e-newsletter. We have a toolkit with tips for, excuse me, if you do see an event coming up, how to prepare, we can also help you. So if you want to strategize, you can certainly contact me. My email address is right here. Or if you have an NBCC team leader in your state that you know, you can certainly plan ahead of time how you're going to make the most of that opportunity. And as Jackie shared, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know if you're going to be able to ask a question or have time. You can always follow up after the event and make sure you get your point across. You can visit our online action center and write in to your member, our system will know whether your member has co-sponsored the bill or if they sit on the Ways and Means Committee, and it will customize the letter that goes to your member of Congress. You can also call the Capitol switchboard to be directed by phone to your offices. As Jo Lynn said, sometimes you leave a message, sometimes you actually speak to a very friendly young staff member at the front desk of that office and just say, whoever you're calling, you can tailor the message based on who they are, but the main point is this bill must be passed. What are you waiting for? We need to advance this bill right now. And then, as Jo Lynn mentioned, pressuring lawmakers through social media and tagging your member of Congress and saying, I am waiting to hear from you why this bill isn't moving, is really effective and important. And we have a toolkit about that as well that we'll be sending out. So we'll send out a number of resources that I've mentioned here. The one I didn't mention is our election platform. We're going to be doing a webinar on the election opportunities a little bit later. We're going to be doing that probably in early to mid-September. But we have NBCC has a policy platform focused on our issues, including the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act, that we are asking candidates to sign and say they support these goals, whether they're an incumbent or somebody running, running to unseat somebody else in Congress. We have 27 candidates from 9 states signed onto that platform right now, and we would like to see that list grow. So you can certainly visit our site and ask candidates if you encounter them. So now, excuse me, I'm gonna stop the share so I can see you all. And Michelle, are there any questions so far you want to ask? Planning to be on mute. Let me take a look myself.
There were actually a couple of unanswered question or answered questions that I think would be useful to reiterate. Jo Lynn or Leanne Keene had asked Jo Lynn if she had had any response from Carol Miller's office. And we know Carol Miller, who is on the Ways and Means Committee, I believe, did co-sponsor, but her counterpart, Riley, has not. So, and then I think there was a follow-on. So, yes, as a co-sponsor on the Ways and Means, I wonder if her office has been responsive about helping to get the bill to a markup. And maybe that's an opportunity for you, Maggie, to talk about what we're doing, to try and really push that.
Sure. So, yeah, I would say Congresswoman Miller became a co-sponsor directly because she and her office spoke to Jo Lynn. So Jo Lynn is 100% responsible for the fact that she came on as a co-sponsor, but we want them to do more. So one thing that we are urging a lot, so any advocates that live in states where these Ways and Means members have been meeting with them. That was the main focus of our lobby day last month. We are following up with them, asking them to put pressure on the committee staff as well. Those are the 2 people that Heather met with when she was here, because Heather is from Missouri, as is Chairman Smith of the Ways and Means Committee. So we knew it was really important for them to hear from Heather, from the congressman's home state, and continue to put pressure. So many folks have been making calls into Chairman Smith's office, urging them to what's called mark up the bill, which means sort of advance it to the next step. And as Jennifer said, we will continue to do that, and we will start to be looking at other options as well. So the materials we'll send out after this will have some specific messages you can use and share. And I saw Leanne also asked a question. This is a good one for you, Jennifer. Is there ever an opportunity to speak to or testify in front of a committee?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. There are opportunities to speak to and testify before members of a committee. Often committees hold hearings for exactly that purpose, to get witnesses to come and testify. And typically, whoever the party in the majority is decides what well, always, whoever the party in the majority is decides what bills they want to hold a hearing on. It's usually the bills that are of a priority to them. And then they get the witnesses that they think are most likely to be able to defend those bills or show the need for those bills. And then the other side of the aisle, if it's a bipartisan bill, then they'll get to bring their own witnesses, often from their districts, to give similar testimony. Or if they don't like the bill, they'll call witnesses that would provide another point of view. Unfortunately, this bill has not gotten a hearing, and I think it would be a great opportunity to do so. There's always opportunities to submit testimony to the committee, which we have done every Congress, I think. And so we have submitted testimony to the committee, but it's very, very powerful when the committee allows for an opportunity for you all to come and on the record testify to your story, and we have asked for that. Now it's just sort of timing is such that we need to move to the markup phase, which is really the next step in the committee process. But that's a great question.
And I would say, you know, in the absence of being able to do that, there are many other things we can do. So Jo Lynn talked a lot about the media. Many of our advocates have written letters to the editor focused on specific lawmakers. Fran Visco, our president, just had an op-ed in The Hill over the weekend talking about her own personal story and the importance of passing this bill. So that is a piece that we have been sharing far and wide on Capitol Hill, as well as to directly to a lot of these offices, to say, to continue to hammer home the point that this is really important. The bill leads, the two members who introduced this bill and lead it also wrote an op-ed a few weeks ago on the same topic. So that's really important. The other thing we can do is demonstrate just how many organizations support this bill. So as Jennifer said earlier, we have a list of about 150 organizations that have said they support passage of this bill. That is something we regularly share with lawmakers, or reach out to individual organizations on that list and ask them to weigh in with their own members. So to continue to add to the large number of voices talking about this bill. So if you represent an organization that has not yet signed on, or you're not sure, you can certainly reach out to us and get your organization's name on that list, because we do regularly circulate it on the Hill. Other questions? I know we're just over time, but I want to give folks space for questions.
So I think we've wrapped up all the questions that have come in.
Okay.
But lots of praise and thank you to all the advocates for sharing their perspectives and their stories.
Yes, thank you so much to Heather, Jackie, and Jo Lynn for just really driving this forward, no matter how long it takes. And thank you, Jennifer. We'll follow up with lots of information soon, and keep you posted on our progress as we keep working on this. Have a great day, everyone.